Hi, everybody, and welcome to the 100 Pounders meeting of Overeaters Anonymous. Today is Wednesday, the 15th of June, 2022, and I am delighted today to be introducing the lovely Stephanie L. Stephanie L lives in Southern California. She came into OA in 2005. She is a 100-pounder, and she is going to tell you exactly what she did to get well. So, Stephanie, I am going to hand it over to you. Take it away, my love.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Stephanie L, and I'm a recovered compulsive overeater. As was already said, I live in Southern California, and I wish I could say that I have been abstinent and recovered since 2005. Unfortunately, that is just not my story. And my story is that I have struggled with compulsive overeating my entire life. Even as a young child, I always wanted more. It was never enough. I never understood why at slumber parties, I'd go to these parties with 10 other girls, we'd order pizza, there'd be junk all over the place, they'd be asleep and I'd be still sitting at the table eating or waiting till they went to sleep because I wanted more. It was never, ever enough. And, today, I am well aware that I have like this oozing, I don't know if it's oozing, but I have this hole inside of me, this spiritual need that people, food, things, nothing can fill. Nothing can fill other than a power greater than myself, who I choose to call God. But I didn't know that as a little girl. I didn't know that growing up. And quite frankly, I didn't know that until I got here. And, I was a professional dieter before coming to OA. I can lose weight. And let me tell you, I have the skin to prove it. Gaining and losing 100 pounds multiple times throughout my lifetime, it really takes a toll on this amazing God-given body that has been able to withhold, or withstand the test of time and the abuse that I have done to it. So, and let me just say out loud, I always get so nervous when I'm speaking. And also let me say, it's super cool to be in the UK because I've never been there. So cool. One of the only good things I think that came out of this whole pandemic is Zoom and being able to connect with people all over the world. That has been so amazing. It just really has. That there's 113 people, on this meeting. For me, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time it is for all of you, but that's just amazing. And I also just want to say too, that God is the hero of my story, that this was done to me. I show up, and I'll talk a little bit about what that looks like, but I show up and this amazing, loving, all-powerful God has restored me to sanity. And I'll just, if I could show the pictures real quick, because I think that's a good way to start too. I don't have a lot of pictures because when I'm 250 pounds, I don't want people to see me. I just don't. So I don't know. Did I send just one page or are there two? I wonder which one I sent you. Well, this will work. So what I wanted to show in these three pictures is I've had periods of being recovered. I've had periods of being at a healthy weight, and I've had periods of relapse. And I'm currently 17 months out of a 2-year relapse. And this picture on the upper left was my first day of transferring to a 4-year university. I went back to school, which was one of the gifts of this program. At this point, I had been recovered for over 3 years. And this is me with my grandson. I'm excited. I'm finally going to be on a college campus, going to school. I was so happy. And I was representing with my Cal State Fullerton t-shirt. My grandson was representing with his Cal State Fullerton t-shirt, and life was good. But let me tell you, 4 months later, I relapsed. 4 months later, I was back on the food. And what you see in the top right-hand picture was me on graduation day. There's my grandson. There I am. I'm 100 pounds heavier than I was on the picture on the left, shoved into this dress. I don't even know why I allowed anyone to take a picture of me that day. Because as I said, when I'm at my top weight and I'm over 200 pounds, not only do I not want to be seen by you, but I don't want any proof. I don't want to look at, the physical ramifications of this disease. And then the bottom picture was me that was before the OA birthday party, down 110 pounds by the grace of God. So thank you, Rita. That's great on the pics. So I think what I really want to focus on today is, I don't want to talk a lot about the drunk-a-log, but here's what I will tell you. This is how I eat. And it's funny because I was with my supervisor. I'm an intern. I'm in graduate school now to be a therapist specializing with children and adolescents. And I'm doing an internship, and I was meeting with my clinical supervisor, and we started talking about OA for some reason. And I was sharing with her what it was like, and her mouth just dropped. Like she, people who aren't like us, they just don't get it. Because this is what happens to me. Food becomes everything. Food becomes my God. It becomes my master. And I'm a night eater, so I hold on all day long, doing whatever diet, whatever it is. I seem to be able to hold on. I'm like this all day long. And then something happens at 8 o'clock at night, and it's like Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. I don't know. Like I can't hold it anymore. And then I binge on whatever I can find in the house, or I go out and get whatever I need. I sit and watch Netflix. I escape into this world of Netflix, and like a party for me is to find a series that has like 10 seasons on Netflix. I have watched Grey's Anatomy, which is like, I don't know how many seasons now, multiple times, right? And, eat and escape into Netflix and eat myself, like pass out, wake up, continue eating, food all around me, chocolate stains all over my shirt. And then I go to bed and I wake up the next morning and I just want to die because I don't want to live like that anymore. And this is a progressive disease. And like I talked about, I could diet. I could diet and lose the weight. But as soon as I lost the weight, I would buy all the new wardrobe. We always hear people tell the story. I'd buy the new wardrobe. And then in a blink of an eye, the weight was packing on again. And I'd have a closet full of clothes with tags that I never, ever wore. And that was the cycle for me over and over and over again. And then at one point, I couldn't even diet anymore. And it really came to a head. And the way I found OA, my middle daughter, I have 3 daughters, 3 adult daughters today. And my middle daughter started using drugs when she was 15. And I found OA through trying to get her help. I had heard about 12-step programs. I had heard about AA. I had never heard of Overeaters Anonymous. And I remember going, I found a meeting because I'm like, I don't know what's wrong with me. There's something wrong. I don't know why I can't even diet anymore. And I would pay thousands of dollars for these diet programs. My favorite one, where I lost the most weight, I lost my first 100 pounds, where I'd go in every day. They'd give me a shot in my butt, a vitamin shot every day. And I'd pee on these little sticks to see if I was in ketosis. And I lost 40 pounds in like 8 weeks. It was like a crazy doctor supervised diet, and also taking diet pills. I would pay the money, and within a week I was eating and I couldn't stop. And so I couldn't even diet anymore. And I remember I found an OA meeting, a live meeting And I showed up and it was in the parking lot. And I sat there and I was scared to go in. And I saw all these really thin, beautiful young girls walking into this church. And I was like, fuck this. I'm a middle-aged, 250-pound woman. This is not for me. I don't know what's happening in there, but this is not for me. And so I went home. I didn't go in. I went home and there was like this nagging, I don't know, try it again, go to a different meeting. And I went to my first meeting and I heard people talk about food the way, like say things out loud that I had never told anyone, that I eat out of the garbage, that I put cleaning supplies in the garbage on top of the food so I won't eat it. And then I take it back out of the garbage like 10 minutes later and wipe it off and then I eat it. Or I go to the grocery store and I always eat the same freaking things. I am not creative with my food. Sweet, salty, lots of chocolate. Sorry, I'll stop talking about food. I don't know if it's okay at this meeting, but I'll go buy all the same things. I'll eat on the way home, throw it out the window because I think that's going to make me stop eating it. And then I'll go back to the store and buy more. And then I'll go home and binge until I pass out. And then I'll tell myself it'll be okay tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow. Like there's some kind of fairy that's going to wave the magic wand, you know, and make me abstinent the next day. So I went to OA, I bought every single book. And it's funny because I met my husband in OA. He's like a 480 pounder. Okay. Sick newcomer meets sick compulsive overeating man. And there you go. The rest is history, right? I always tell him he 13 stepped me because he had a year and I had 30 days when we got together. And yeah, it's been an interesting ride. But so he has all the books. I have all the books. We've got 2 or 3 copies of every single freaking book that you can get in OA, and most of them from AA. But I bought all the books. I want to know what the diet was, and I want to get the hell out of there. Well, clearly that didn't work. So fast forward, you know, I get abstinent, I work the steps, I lose 125 pounds. I was extremely thin. People thought I was anorexic. I was, you know, exercising 4 times a week. I was wearing a size 0 sometimes, size 2, size 0. And it was the craziest thing because in meetings, people would come up to me and want me to sponsor them. Because on the outside, you know, I was young, I was thin, I looked a certain way, but on the inside, I was dying. I was dying on the inside, right? So even today, when I look for a sponsor, I don't look for what the sponsor looks like. I look for what the sponsor says, the glow coming from their eyes, how they talk about the book, how they talk about God. And all these years in OA, what I never got, I would hear people talk about the spiritual piece. And you know what? When you're around here for this long, and when you've worked the steps and read the book, I can quote the book. But here's the thing, what I never got until today, this is really a spiritual program. And God is really the answer, or whoever you call your higher power is really the answer. I was that person who'd say, this book is saving my life. This program is saving my life. Well, these steps, the book shows me how to work the steps, and the steps connect me with power, with a God of my understanding, who I know today is loving and kind and is never going to leave me and is always with me and holds my hand when I'm crying and leads me to, you know, I don't always understand God's will. And I'll tell you, these last however many months, there's been some pretty hard things that have happened, but I know that I have not been alone with that. So that's what the big book and the steps lead me to. They lead me to power, the power that I don't have. And my sponsor always, you know, she always talks about God sends out these search and rescue missions for us addicts. And I'll never forget, like, it had been 2 years. I was waiting to die. COVID was happening. People who were morbidly obese were the people dying from COVID. I was working from home on Zoom. And the funny thing is I worked in a rehab as a drug and alcohol counselor with adolescent girls. And every day I'd be talking about the big book and recovery and feeling like a fraud because I'd be eating in between clients. I'd eat before work. I felt like the biggest fraud. But let me tell you about this book, right? Let me help you find recovery because it works. And I could barely walk down the street. I would wake up, I'd go from the bed to the chair, wash my face, show the camera like this. So this is how I worked on Zoom. So no one could see my body, right? Because, I have a relatively thin face. And even at my top weight, if I just hold the camera just right? So I could barely walk down the street. The food wasn't even good anymore. I was crying at night when I was eating because I desperately wanted to stop. And I never leave. So I'd get a sponsor off the vision line. I'd go to OA How and get a sponsor. And I was bing, 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 looking for the best sponsor, the best food plan, and nothing was working. And I had over 3 years of freedom. And I'm like, I thought God had turned on me. I mean, it was like, okay, I'm going to die. I had health problems. I was having, I have something called supraventricular tachycardia, and my heart would jump to 180 out of nowhere because I have an electrical wiring problem that I didn't know about, which is interesting because in these last 17 months, I have rarely had episodes of this heart issue. And it was happening to me all the time. And I was in the emergency room all the time. Okay. Because stress and sugar was contributing to some of that. I go to the OA birthday party on Zoom. I don't know why. I registered the morning of the party. I don't know what made me log on. And I was eating with the camera off, crumbs all over my laptop. And I heard this woman I had never heard before. And I heard her talk about these search and rescue missions. And then there was something else she said. She said, you can have all the desire in the world, but not the needed power. I had sponsors who had dropped me and said, you just don't want this enough. You haven't hit a bottom. I'm like, what the hell? What does that mean? I want to stop and I can't. And so I swear to you, I am not exaggerating. What was in my mouth fell out of my mouth. And I'm like, holy shit. As my earpiece falls out of my ear. That was kind of funny. Hold on a second. Okay. I wrote her phone number down. I called her and she agreed to sponsor me. And I have been abstinent since that day. And she said to me, you're going to pray for 30 minutes. You're going to spend 30 minutes in prayer and meditation every morning. And I was like, what? I've been in OA for 15, 16 years, and I've never spent 30 minutes. I'm busy. Don't you know I work? I'm a graduate student. I take care of my 4-year-old grandson. What? And by the way, and I didn't say any of this to her because I'm a good soldier. This is all going on in my head. And by the way, God has screwed me and I want nothing to do with God. But I was out of ideas and I was desperate and I didn't want to live like I was living anymore because I was living in darkness. My life was so dark and dank. It was like I was also sure I was going to choke because for me, it's violent the way I eat. Shoving food in my mouth so fast, I was sure I was going to choke and die. Someone was going to find me with a freaking Hershey's bar in my, I don't know. And so I'm like, I'm out of ideas. Okay, fine. So the next morning, I didn't know what to do because what do you do for 30 freaking minutes? I set my timer and I couldn't even look at God, and I'm very visual. And if you've heard this before, I apologize, but it's such a big part of my story. I pictured myself sitting on a park bench and God was on one side and I was on the other. And I just was staring straight ahead going, I can't look at you. I want nothing to do with you. You have ruined my life. I want to die, but I'm here. And I talked to someone later that day and I said, I don't, what do you do in those 30 minutes? And I told her about my experience. And this wonderful, beautiful woman said, well, Stephanie, why don't you just picture you move a little bit closer on that park bench? And the next day, a little bit closer and a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And so the next day, I moved a little bit closer. And I still was like a 2-year-old brat going, screw you, God. Rah, rah, rah. But every day I got a little bit closer. And by the end of the week, I could look at God. And I'm like, oh, okay. All right, you're here. You didn't leave me. I left you. I left you. And I don't know, something shifted. And my sponsor also told me by step 2, you're going to feel the power flow in, right? You're going to start feeling the power. And that first week, I couldn't sleep because my body was so used to like binging to sleep every night. And I would just be like, I just held on. In the AA 12 and 12, it talks about we open the door of willingness just a little bit, a crack of willingness, and then God can come in. And it was kind of like that for me. And so, step 2 was really important for me because and then here's what I learned. And one of my favorite, and this is really present for me lately, I don't know why, on page 55 in We Agnostics, it says, because I was searching for, I was always like, I've got to find God, I've got to find God. Well, here's the thing, it says here, actually, we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. It may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater than ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. And I blocked God with my selfishness, my ego and pride, my need to control everything and everyone around me. Even in OA, constantly searching for the best sponsor, the right book to read. I would have this weird dialogue in my head. Okay, that's it. That's what I need to do. That's it. And like I said, it wasn't until I said, I don't know. And step 1 for me is, I'm powerless over food. I can't fix this. And I, who raised 3 daughters as a single mom, who built a successful business career without going to college, bought a home. Like I was so successful in so many areas of my life, but never with this food thing, right? Like Bill, I thought, and I was brought up to believe, be strong, don't let anyone see you sweat, pull through. My kids didn't see me cry until I came to OA. And so I had to really, in my heart of hearts, believe that I can't fix this food problem by myself. I am powerless. And then the unmanageability of my life. I had a hysterectomy during those 2 years of relapse because of some other things. I was having heart problems. I couldn't walk down the street. Sometimes I had a hard time. This is so gross, but I could barely wipe my butt in the bathroom sometimes. I was so, and it wasn't just my size. It was because I never moved my body. So that step 1 was so important. And then step 2, maybe God, just maybe you love me enough to help me with this food problem. And I just needed a little bit of that and a little bit of willingness to show up on that park bench and get closer and closer. And today, I wanted more than 30 minutes. I sat there longer. I read this spiritual reading and it reminded me of a spiritual song I love. And I'm sitting in my little spiritual area singing. And my husband's like, he's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I don't know. But I feel so protected and I feel so loved. And I know that this is a miracle. My sponsor was at Search and Rescue Mission and my sponsor didn't fix me, and the steps didn't fix me, but this miraculous God, you know, has brought me to this place. And so step 3 is, you know, I got to turn everything over or make a decision to, and I don't do that very well. And so here's the thing, I know today, I am seriously flawed, but God still loves me. I am seriously flawed and I have these character defects, and that's the work today. I do that work in step 10. You know, yesterday I met with a client's father, and he was a very awful man. And I was in a closed room, just him and I, and he said some things that were hurtful to me and were hurtful about my client. And when he left, I was shaking and I wanted to cry. And, you know, I had to look at, okay, this man is spiritually developing just like me. How can I be of service to this man? I prayed for this man. He came up in my meditation this morning. I prayed for him in my meditation, and I'm not resentful at him anymore. And you know what? I get it. He's got a tough situation. There's just a lot going on. And so I can do a 10th step and find relief from my selfishness, because how dare he treat me that way?
That's 5 minutes.
Thank you so much. How dare he treat me that way? The dishonesty is that, you know, that this man is trying to harm me in some way, or that the dishonesty is that I am better than him, right? And so I worked through that, and I was okay. And that's kind of what happened with my relapse. Life got big, life got good. I stopped doing 10 steps, so I wasn't dealing with resentments. I wasn't spending time in prayer and meditation, so I wasn't, you know, enlarging my spiritual life. I look back on it now and it's like, man, I don't know how I stayed in recovery for all those years, because it was nothing like it is for me today. And then if a sponsor relapsed, I'd be like, kind of relieved, because then I didn't have to take that phone call. And that is an awful thing to admit. But in January 1st, you know, surprise, surprise, because the relapse happens way before the food goes in my mouth. And so it's a miracle that I'm here today. And so today I take 10, 11, and 12 very seriously. And it's really about working on those character defects, because I still want to control the world. I want my husband to do it a certain way. My husband spoke on a meeting this weekend, and I was sitting next to him in my head going, say this, say that. Wait, what? You didn't say that right. And and literally, this is me. You can't see me on camera, but I'm pushing the big book over to him because I want him to quote it. So I got to make an amends to him after that. But so I'm flawed, and I have a program that helps me work on that. And I don't have to hate myself for making mistakes. I can see it as it is. I'm under construction. I'm spiritually growing. And this relationship with this power is fundamental to everything else I do in my life. When I'm meeting with clients, I pray when I don't know what to say or I don't know what to do. I invite God in, you know. And it's funny because when I don't do that, like with that father of a client yesterday, I didn't pray. I just sat there fuming inside. I wonder how it would have been different if I had prayed and asked God, please help me see this man the way you see him, God. Please show me what you would have me say or do, how you want me to show up, who you would have me be in this situation. Because when I do that, it's funny, the answers come. Or maybe I'm prompted to just not say anything and just listen. Whatever, you know, the more I invite God in to these moments, the more serene. And my favorite promises in the book are the 10-step promises. And I know that we read this in this meeting at the end, so I won't read them because it'll be duplication. But here's what I can tell you today. I'm not fighting the food. I'm not even avoiding temptation. I am safe and protected, you know. But here's the warning, and here's what I know. If I let up on the spiritual program of action, if I rest on my laurels, And it says here, we're headed for trouble if we do, for alcohol is a subtle foe, because I'll start believing the lie again, that the food is the answer. We are not cured of, for us, compulsive overeating. What we really have is a daily reprieve contingent on the maintenance of our spiritual condition. Every day is a day when we must carry the vision of God's will into all of our activities. How can I best serve thee, God? Thy will, not mine, be done. It's like I have to show up and do this every day and continue, you know, to acknowledge that, you know, I don't got this, one day at a time. And so with that, I will pass. So thank you for letting me share.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. I think I speak for everybody to say that was wonderful. Thank you so much. And I was just going to read one of the quotes. It's from the AA 12 and 12 that Stephanie talked about. It was about step 3. Practicing step 3 is like the opening of a door, which to all appearances is still closed and locked. All we need is a key, and the decision to swing the door open. There is only one key, and it is called willingness. Once unlocked by willingness, the door opens almost of itself. And looking through it, we shall see a pathway beside, which is an inscription. It reads, "This is the way to a faith that works." In the first 2 steps, we were engaged in reflection. We saw that we were powerless over alcohol or food, but we also perceived that faith of some kind, if only in AA itself, is possible to anyone. These conclusions did not require action. They required only acceptance. And I'll stop the recording.